नमस्कार,
नमस्कार जी।
सुप्रभात।
नमस्कार
की
नमस्कार।
आज की सभा में आप सभी गणमान्य सदस्यों का हार्दिक स्वागत है। हमेशा की तरह आज की सभा की शुरुआत भी हम यूनिवर्सल इन्वोकेशन से करेंगे, जिसके उपरांत 1 मिनट का मौन रखने के बाद सभा की विधिवत कार्रवाई प्रारंभ होगी। कृपया अपने माइक्रोफोन्स म्यूट करके प्रेयर का उच्चारण करें। O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is therefore one with every other. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. थैंक यू। हमारा परम सौभाग्य है कि आज हमारे मध्य नेशनल लेक्चरर और इंटरनेशनल स्पीकर ब्रदर शिखर अग्निहोत्री जी उपस्थित हैं, जो आज एच.पी. ब्लावस्ती की विश्व प्रसिद्ध पुस्तक द वॉइस ऑफ साइलेंस के अध्याय द 7 पोर्टल्स से संबंधित विषय पर अपने विचार रखेंगे। आप सभी इन 7 पोर्टल्स अर्थात दान, शील, शांति, वैराग्य, वीर, ध्यान एवं प्रज्ञा के बारे में जानते होंगे, जिसे आज शिखर जी विस्तार से पर अपने विचार प्रकट करने जा रहे हैं। वैसे तो शिखर जी एक जानी मानी शख्सियत हैं, जिनसे हम में से सभी भली भांति परिचित हैं, परंतु एक औपचारिकता मात्र होने के कारण मैं संक्षेप में उनका परिचय अपने नए सदस्यों को देना चाहूँगा। बंधु शिखर अग्निहोत्री जी मूल रूप से लखनऊ शहर के निवासी हैं, जो कि प्रसिद्ध थियोसॉफिस्ट डॉक्टर I.K. तैमनी की कर्मभूमि रहा। वह एक थियोसॉफिस्ट परिवार से संबंध रखते हैं। उनकी माताजी थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी की वरिष्ठ सदस्य हैं। शिखर जी अपनी माताजी के साथ विभिन्न शहरों में थियोसॉफिकल स्टडी कैंप्स में भाग लेने जाया करते थे। अंततोगत्वा उन्होंने 2008 में थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी की सदस्यता ग्रहण कर ली। शिखर जी ने मुंबई यूनिवर्सिटी से नॉटिकल साइंस में स्नातक होने के बाद 10 वर्षों तक शिपिंग इंडस्ट्री में सेवा की, जिसके उपरांत उन्होंने सेवानिवृत्ति ले ली और आजकल वह अडियार में अपनी पत्नी सहित थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी द्वारा स्थापित अडियार थियोसॉफिकल एकेडमी में नैतिक शिक्षा देने का कार्य कर रहे हैं। शिखर जी कई वर्षों से थियोसॉफी से जुड़े हुए हैं और भारतवर्ष के विभिन्न शहरों में उन्होंने स्टडी कैंप्स और सेमिनार्स आयोजित किए हैं। उन्होंने थियोसॉफिस्ट, इंडियन थियोसॉफिस्ट, वेकअप इंडिया और धर्मपथ में अनेक लेख लिखे। इसके अतिरिक्त उनके लेख फ्रेंच और स्पेनिश थियोसॉफिकल मैगजीन्स में भी प्रकाशित हुए। वह प्रज्ञा लॉज लखनऊ के फाउंडर मेंबर और सचिव रह चुके हैं। मैत्री टीओएस ग्रुप लखनऊ की स्थापना भी उन्हें करने का गौरव प्राप्त है। शिखर जी आज पूर्व घोषित कार्यक्रम के अनुसार द 7 पोर्टल फ्रॉम द वॉइस ऑफ साइलेंस पर अपना व्याख्यान देंगे, जिसकी अवधि लगभग 45 मिनट की होगी, जिसके उपरांत 10 मिनट आपके प्रश्नों के लिए आरक्षित रहेंगे। आपसे अनुरोध है कि अपने माइक्रोफोन्स म्यूट रखें और निश्चित समय में ही अपनी बात रखने के लिए माइक्स अनम्यूट करें। इस सभा की रिकॉर्डिंग की जा रही है, जिसे यथा समय हमारे यूट्यूब चैनल इंद्रप्रस्थ थियोसॉफिकल लॉज पर अपलोड कर दिया जाएगा। अब अधिक समय नष्ट न करते हुए मैं बंधु शिखर अग्निहोत्री जी से अनुरोध करूंगा कि वो अपने उत्कृष्ट विचारों से हमारा ज्ञानवर्धन करें। आइए महोदय, धन्यवाद आपका।
Thank you, Tanisha ji, for the introduction, formal introduction, and we'll see how the purpose of this study is to be mentally detached from the introduction of our personality. So, can you see the screen, sir? I'm sharing. Okay. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Hearty greetings and good wishes from Adyar. And I would like to start the talk today with the salutation to the Guru principle everywhere in nature. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Guru साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः. Thank you, Taneja ji and Indraprasth Lodge for giving me this opportunity to share this subject as it is outlined in the book. And as you are aware that the subject for today's study is the part of the book, The Voice of the Silence, which is the second book of the three gems of the Theosophical Society, Theosophical literature rather. And in the words of HPB, the content of this book is the translation of selected text from the work called the Book of Golden Precepts. And what we are going to study today is about the 7 portals or the 7 gates to adeptship and beyond. And as we all know that this subject is very vast to cover in a short duration, so we'll be sharing some of the selected aspects to discuss, and so that later on we can do our own self-study in our own free time and get some deeper insights from this subject. But before we dive deep into our subject, let us take a view on some important information about the book which will help us in our study. And Dr. Besant writes about how this book was written. Dr. Besant writes that HPB wrote it at Fontainebleau in France, and the greater part was written when Annie Besant was with her, and she sat in the room while HPB was writing it. She knew that she did not write it through referring to any books, but she wrote it down steadily, hour after hour, exactly as though she was writing either from memory or from reading it where no book was. And in the same manner, I think she has written The Secret Doctrine and other books also, in which she has given references to various old scriptures, but everybody knew that she did not have any books with her. So she saw all of them in the Akashic records, all those books. So she produced in the evening that manuscript that Annie Besant saw her write as she sat with her. And HPB asked her and others to correct it for English, which was not her mother tongue, because she said she had written it so quickly that there may be definitely some errors in that. But Annie Besant said that they did not alter in that book more than few words, and still it remains as a specimen of a marvelously beautiful literary work. Now we come to a very important point of this book, that is its dedication. And in the dedication it is written, dedicated to the few. And from the dedication we can clearly see that this book and its subject is not for everyone. Unlike At the Feet of the Master, which is for those who knock, this book is for the few people. That means that there may be many individuals who knock the door of spirituality or self-knowledge, but their aims may be different. Maybe they come to spirituality to get rid of their personal suffering, personal sorrow, or to get enlightenment, or to get psychic powers. But there are very few who come to this path for not just seeking personal peace or enlightenment, but for the whole humanity that is suffering. Because this book, in all its parts, in all its 3 fragments, in different words or expressions, tries to inspire us to choose the higher path, the secret path of renunciation, the secret path of the Buddhas, or the higher ideal of Nirmankayas, which we will also see in the 7 portals. So this is a really mystical book and very poetical in nature, and as just mentioned has 3 fragments. Although the book is named The Voice of the Silence, but in fact that is the name of the first fragment, followed by the second fragment, which is called the two paths, and the third and final fragment, which is named as, which is also the subject of our study today, the seven portals. And although C.W. Leadbeater writes that these three fragments are not like in continuation or relation to each other, and for all practical purposes are three separate sections, but still they deal with the same subject in a different manner, which is a way of our ancient rishis and sages. Why? So as to emphasize and impress the subject on the disciple's mind again and again by way of repetition in a different manner. And C.W. Leadbeater says that it renews the enthusiasm of the disciple, draws attention to the points which he may have overlooked, and generally gives him the breadth of the vision. So, also, the subject of seven portals is especially important because it is referred to in all the three segments, in all the three fragments, and as compared to the difficult fourfold path of dhyana, that is meditation, which has fourfold path. Here he has considered only pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. The path of seven portals or transcendental virtues is still more difficult because to cross every portal, the disciple has to fight cruel, crafty powers, the passions incarnate, implying that each step the disciple has to overcome one of his or her inner weaknesses or faults completely. And C.W. Leadbeater writes that it appears that Arya Sangha had in the background of the mind a correspondence between these seven portals and the seven principles in man. The first three are related in some way to the three lower principles in the personality, while the fourth concerned with the antakarna, and at this point the temptations begin to those of the higher principles and thus belong to the inner man. There are levels of enlightenment just as there are layers of sheets around the consciousness. So the nature of consciousness behind every sheath is different in a blissful and expansive manner. And one significant aspect to observe is that the qualifications mentioned here are not that different, or rather similar to what we studied in At the Feet of the Master. But here, the degree of qualification, that is, the depth of the qualification expected from a disciple, is much more, and that's why they are called also the paramitas, the perfections. That we may have, suppose, a quality of non-violence or truthfulness, but to what level are we truthful? What can we put at stake maximum to be truthful? Am I being truthful because I have no other choice? Am I being truthful even if I have to lose something? Am I being truthful even at the cost of my life? All these are the depths, the degrees of these virtues that we have to go through in order to reach the adeptship. Also, although they are mentioned in a serial order, as if the disciple has to pass one by one in turn, but we all know that in life, all these are states of mind or being of the disciple. So, all these are in the disciple already, and with every step they grow stronger. But also at every step, a particular weakness comes in a concentrated form to test the disciple and the depth of the virtue to which he is established. So, the portals, actually what we are going to study are not the portals themselves, but each portal has a golden key that opens it. So portal generally means a gateway to another place or space or dimension. So each gate has to be opened with a key, and that's why, and these keys are given to us in the form of dana, shila, shanti, vairagya, and virya, dhyana, and prajna. And although the Sanskrit names for the keys are adopted, but there is a small sentence in English explaining not only the meaning of the virtue but a slight hint of how to master that or what it actually means. Because all of these words may mean differently to different people. But even before explaining the path, the teacher gives valuable warnings and cautions to the disciple. And the first one comes as self reliance. And the teacher says that prepare thyself because you will have to travel alone on this path. The teacher can only point the way. And that is what has been the very core of our movement on this path. That many times we think, okay, now we have a guru and guru will take care of everything and we don't have to do anything. Or the God is there, God will do everything. But on this path of transcendental virtues, the disciple has to walk alone, and even at the cost of leaving many of his friends or the world even, because the way of thinking of the disciple is sometimes maybe entirely different in the way the world thinks, and then the person has to be alone and the teacher can only show the path to walk. The next one is no comparison, because many times our mind tries to imitate the others, but the teacher clearly says that do not compare yourself with any other person, that I should do or the follow the other person or what somebody else is saying. Just like Krishna says that follow swadharma, that is better thing rather than following somebody else's dharma, which is dangerous, because every jivatma's syllabus, every jivatma's path is different. The goal here it says the path is one for all, the means to reach the goal must vary with the pilgrim. Same, the path is one, that everyone will go through all these portals, but what will be the means to go through these portals will vary. So let us not compare ourselves with others. Third thing he says that these faults or sins become much more dangerous on the path than ever they were before, and this is an occult law that Theosophy teaches, that every time a person wills to walk this path, he is actually changing the cosmic order of things, and it is actually a request to nature now that if I am willing to walk this path, now my future cannot be predicted as per astrology. If that wish is truly sincere, because then some other forces comes into force, and as we can see from Mahatma letters, that many of those people who were put on probation, what happens during the time of probation is all the weaknesses and all the strengths are come on the front and with their full force, so as to see what that person or the would-be disciple is capable of. So at that time one has to have a firm determination not to give up, and because on this path a person has to live by his own rules, not simply to follow the rules or conventions of the social environment in which we are caught so deeply. So we cannot say, of course we will see later that the rules of morality for a disciple are much stricter and applies 24/7 than the rules of the world, but the morality based on culture may not be the same as per what our spirit is looking after. And then comes the vision of the path to the disciple. The disciple says that I see the path. And what does he see? That its foot is in mire, that is in mud, and its top is lost in glorious light nirvanic. So just like the lotus flower we see, that's why the lotus flower is a very good rupak or allegory or symbology for this whole pilgrimage, the whole journey, that it rises from the mud through the water in the air and opens up towards space. That's what the vision of a disciple when he sees the path, and what he also sees, the ever narrowing portals on the hard and thorny road to wisdom, jnana. Ever narrowing, which means as we go further and further on the path, there is very less and less space to cross. It does not mean the physical space, but what we can compare is it to that the space for duality is to exist goes less and less. Just like Kabir Das ji says, जब मैं था तब हरि नहीं, अब हरि है मैं नहीं. So because the prem gali ati sakri. Sakri means very narrow, in which two cannot exist. So that is the path. On each and every step, we have to get rid of our duality, sense of separateness. Then only we can go further on this path. Then the teacher tells the preparation, how to prepare for this path. Because as we see, this is not for everyone, it is for the few, so there has to be some preparation. So the first step is discrimination. Again, same as we had at the feet of the master, but here it goes further to say, learn to part thy body from thy mind, that is lower self from the higher self, to live in the eternal, and discriminate the temporary from the eternal and live accordingly. So very direct statements, very strong statements, says that we must learn to separate what is real and what is unreal, what is temporary, what is eternal, and then according to those understandings we should guide our life. Then is self-control as to the mind. It also comes at the feet of the master, but here it says that thou shalt not let thy senses make a playground of thy mind, because each sense, we have so many senses, each sense will try to influence the mind to experience pleasure of its objects. But again, sense pleasure is momentary as compared to the bliss of mind illumined by buddhi. So a very good symbology that let's not make our mind a playground, that it's like an open playground where the desires are just running a show and not under the control of the mind. Then very important thing comes is selfless service. And how this selfless service? By feeling us abiding in all things and all things in self. We shall not separate ourselves from the bigger self, the universal self. Be in full accord with all that lives. Bear love to men as though they were brother pupils. And as far as possible, remove the sense of separateness with others and feel one with all. I think that is the fundamental principle of theosophical teaching, that the heresy of sense of separateness, which is the source of all evil, has to be uprooted to walk on this path safely. And when this sense of separateness is uprooted, then only the love immortal, love unconditional, can be there. How? By being in the master. It is called alaya, that is universal soul, that once we are one with, as we say in the prayer in the beginning of the meeting, the one who feels oneself as one with thee, no, he is one with every other. So if that oneness with universal soul is experienced, then automatically it will give us this realization of oneness with the other. And at this level, it says that we should be able to sacrifice the personal to the impersonal, and thus destroy the path between the two, that is the antahkaran. That is, now there is no lower mind and higher mind, now it is just pure mind. And then comes the last one is compassion. When there is the sense of separateness is removed, the love is there, then compassion will automatically should come in our nature. If it is not happening, then we have to do some introspection. And that's why it says that have we attuned our heart and mind to the great mind and the heart of all mankind that lives and breathes, to humanity's great pain, not just to our personal pain, but to everybody's pain. And that was the difference, what led Buddha to his leaving the home and trying to find out some solution for the death, old age, or sickness. That was the reason that he left, so that the whole of humanity or everybody who is suffering can be freed from that. And now with this we come to the first portal, the key to opening which is the key of charity and love immortal. But before we go into this in detail, let us see what are the pitfalls on this path. Because the pitfall of this gate is lack of motivation. Because once we start walking this path in the beginning, it may be we are very enthusiastic, we may have certain experiences and something new we are learning, but over a period of time, and since we are in the beginning full of joy and it's very pleasant and easy to walk, but after a while this vision may fade and we begin to grow restless and exhausted and caught between the two certainties, that is Maya Mili Naram. That is, we have we have tried to separate ourselves either mentally or physically from the material world in search of something immaterial or spiritual. But in the beginning there is a lot of enthusiasm, but after a certain time, when that when the ebb comes and we are not that joyful at that time, we think we are lost, that neither did we get the material world nor did we reach the spiritual world. So that is what something we have to work upon. And how will it work upon is with charity, because the key to the first gate is charity, and it looks very simple and universally known, dana. It is also one of the necessary aspects of every exoteric religion, where the devotee has to give in charity a certain percentage of his or her income to the needy. But what the dana we are talking about is not mere charity in the giving of some money, something, nor what is commonly called a charitable attitude, but something more than that. It means utter readiness to give oneself and all one has in service, looking for opportunities in our daily life to help, as mentioned in At the Feet of the Master. Because the only cause of evil in this world is apathy based on selfishness, because we think only of ourselves. It's not that suddenly today we are selfish and tomorrow or next moment we may become selfless. Okay, that is also possible, because we never know who is at what state of being. But at least we can begin to do such things, even by just giving money or things, whatever we can afford. Because what is the science behind it? Why is it said that dana, the key to charity and the love immortal? Because I personally think that charity is the beginning of love and love is the ending of charity. Because when we are doing charity, it means I am giving, somebody is receiving. So there is duality. But during this whole process, when there is no more giver, no more receiver, no more process of giving, then there is only love immortal, because there is no duality, there is no other. And at that moment, just the divine will is being manifested through a medium in accordance with the law of karma. So that is why dana is given as the first key, that no matter what, and that is one thing we might have observed, that whenever we become depressed or sad, the first thing what happens is we close ourselves. We don't want to share anything with anyone, and that further increases our suffering. So we can make it a habit, or maybe that's why it was made a rule rather in religion, to give something of your income as part, and it is in every religion, not just Hindu religion. Then we come to the next portal, the key to which is Shila. And the meaning, the statement is given to it is the key of harmony in word and act, the key that counterbalances the causes and effect and leaves no further room for karmic action. Very important, which we'll discuss. And the pitfalls of this portal are the doubt and fear. Why doubt and fear, we will see, and it reminds us of beware of fear that spreads like the black and soundless wings of midnight bat between the moonlight of the soul and thy great goal that looms in the distance far away. Why? Because fear kills the will and stays all action. And if lacking in Shila virtue, the pilgrim trips, karmic pebbles bruise his feet along the rocky path. This is very, very poetical in nature, but explains everything. That what is Shila, as it said, key of harmony in word and act, means if there is if we do not have integrity, what we say and what we do, it means there is a lie, we are living, or we are being hypocrite, or we are actually wearing the mask which is not our real face. And all of us might have observed that when we tell a lie or when we do something wrong, although we know that nobody knows it, but still we know that I am saying something, I'm doing something wrong, I am telling a lie, there is a shade of fear that what if this is caught? And so that's why it tells us very, very clearly that Shila virtue is based on harmony, based on good conduct. And the occultist has a moral code different but far more strict than that of the world. He is bound by the principles of spiritual life, which does not that ये जो बोला जाता है वो झूठ नहीं होता, or we can give so many excuses for so many things. But in occultism, there cannot be slightest deviation from truth, love, and life of service, and with no room at all for personal self-indulgence. And he is not free to work in the real sense. What Shila says, that karmic pebbles, that is what we have done in the past, the karma, and what we are now creating by not having integrity, it will create a lot of more karma, which will bring more obstacles in our path. That is saying pebbles bruise his feet along the rocky path. So what shall we do? And the book developing integrity in thoughts, words, and deeds. We at least begin to, whatever we are thinking, we put in words and we do in the deeds, or at least if some thoughts we are not liking or we don't prefer, we can try to avoid. But the last thing we would want to do is think something else and do something else. Next is the courageous endurance. Same thing, because a lot of things will come our way on this path by our karmic sanskara. So whatever comes, we have to not complain. and make best use of the situations allotted by karma, no matter how painful or difficult they are. That's how we develop Shila. Then, by finding and removing the cause of disharmony. Sometimes we think the cause of disharmony is doing the bad thing, or some bad person is there who is causing disharmony. But ultimately the root of disharmony is sense of separateness, because even the good action, the punya also done with the sense of doership, is disharmony, because it is maybe the result of it is pleasure, but it is still a disharmony, but maybe of a better kind. So that we have to do. Be fearless. If we have studied the book Thought Power, and we have our man visible and invisible, there we see how when we are fearful or scared, we become like in a cage, and we are not open to anything else. So instead of that, we have to dare, because the more we fear, the light within will become less and less, which alone can guide us. And with the fear comes trembling, and under this fear, the next key, that is the key of Shanti, becomes rusty. That is, when an iron thing, we have iron tools in our home, and with some humidity and the oxygen in the atmosphere, it begins to rust, especially the keys. And if after a long time we try to open the lock with the rusty key, it won't open. That's what is told here, that be fearless, because under fear the key of Shanti becomes rusty and it will not open the next door. And Shanti, the key, is patience sweet, that naught can ruffle. That is dhairya. मेरे ख्याल से patience. Dhairya, not just dhairya, it says sweet, that naught can ruffle. Because sometimes we are also patient, but with anxiety or with complaint. So while the candidate at this stage of journey must acquire a great measure of this Shanti, but it still remains to be perfected later on. Because to be utterly unruffled, unaffected, is a very high condition. Endless and joyful patience is required. At this point, I would just share one story, that one of the two devotees were doing tapasya to see God. And then Naradji goes to Vishnuji that these two people are engaged in your devotion and they are doing tapasya. When are you going to give them darshan and give them some boon? So Vishnuji thought of testing them. So he went to first person, and not directly, he sent Naradji to test those two people. And with the message, with the first person, Naradji went and he told him that Vishnuji is very happy with your tapasya, and he has promised to give you darshana after the number of years which is equal to the number of leaves under this peepal tree on which you are sitting. And then that person looked up, and there were thousands and thousands of leaves. So immediately he became so depressed and discouraged that, oh my God, after such a long time, and he left his tapasya. Naradji went to the other devotee and said the same thing to him. That devotee did not look up or say anything, but he started dancing with joy. Naradji asked, why are you dancing with joy? That because there is so many leaves and so many years, thousands of years, that after which Vishnuji will give you darshan. What he said, it doesn't matter, because at least he has confirmed that he is going to give me darshan. So at least I am going to be alive for that time, because if I am not here, how can he give me darshan? So that was the moment when suddenly Vishnuji appeared and gave him the darshan. So sometimes the situation may seem very unsurmountable, difficult, but even in those situations we have to keep our mind calm. But that we can do how? How to develop Shanti only when we understand the laws of nature and study them and try to internalize them in our daily life. And first of which is that no effort is lost. No matter how many times we have failed, how many times we have lost not achieved the expected result, but we never know that which failure is the last failure. Maybe up till now, whatever we made the effort was used in compensating for our prarabdha, and now the next time we try, we are going to get what we want. So it is not at all correct to think that any effort that we do is lost. No. If we are not getting the success or whatever we think we are aiming for, it is actually working out our prarabdha and also giving us the opportunity to look where we lack in our capacity to work more. Another thing is doing something for its own good, not for a reward. That is again taught in philosophical literature, because many times people say that do to others the same thing that what you expect of you for you, which may have been true to some eras before, but now if we have to go further, actually we have to do what is the right thing to do, not because people will do that to me in return. No, because if you are telling the truth, most likely people, instead of praising you, will throw stones at you. So, and at that time, if we believe in this thing that do to others what you do expect for yourself, that theory will be broken. So we have to do something for its own good, not for a reward or not for an expectation. And also the ultimate law of evolution and retribution, that is love and complete justice, rule the world. The more and more we internalize these principles, these laws, and try to implement them in our daily life, the Shanti, the peace, the patience will gradually overcome, all our worries and anxieties. And always keeping in our sight the ideal of human progression and perfection, which the secret science depicts, which is that we are gods in exile and we have the divinity within, and no matter how down we fall, there is always a way up. Then the book says, but once thou hast passed the gate of Shanti, step the third is taken. Thy body is thy slave. I think I have to go a little quickly because we are running short of time. So I will go a little bit quickly on these ones. The next step is Vairagya. And Vairagya is explained as indifference to pleasure and pain. That is illusion conquered and truth alone perceived. This is a very important aspect in all spiritual disciplines, because at this stage of the path, the smallest wave of desire or longing or even regret for worldly things will make the disciple forfeit the three prizes. That is, all these three achievements that we have achieved till now will be lost, in the sense we have to work them up again. So although it is translated as desirelessness, but if we look deeper in Vairagya, one of the meanings of the Vairagya is Viranj Dhan Nya. And that is what is explained by this statement: illusion conquered, truth alone perceived. And Viranj Dhan Nya means to look without colors, without any color. Ranj means color. When we look without any conditioning, without any prejudices, then only we can see the things as they are. And then only we can perceive the truth. And then only we can have an open mind with which we can study the voidness of the seeming full and the fullness of seeming void. As you can see on the screen, that's a very famous statement from Voice of Silence, because what we are looking at is space, which is a void, which is not, in fact, if we read the occult chemistry, and what we are thinking as full, all the objects, are actually the bubbles in the in that koilons. So that's when we begin to understand the truth, and then only the real vairagya will come. And that is the way how to develop vairagya, by trying to get free ourselves from all sorts of prejudices and conditioning, and keeping our concentration on one pure light which is free from affection, and use thy golden key. Free from affection means not free from love, but free from being affected from our outside surroundings. And with this, we come to the next key, which is Virya, the dauntless energy that fights its way to the supernal truth out of the mire of life's terrestrial. We can even name it as the Navratra has just passed. We can even name it as that the power of the feminine power, or the Shakti that is within all of us, which, and if we see all around, every creature in this world is trying to better their status. I mean, every creature means, I mean to say human beings, that there is something guiding from within. This evolution is not going in a haphazard way. There is something guiding it, and that guiding power, that is the dauntless energy. But the important thing on this gate is, this is a very important step, because when something is gained, the 4 steps, 4 of the portals we have crossed, there is a sense of, let's say, at peace, or laziness, or carelessness, or being satisfied that, okay, now I have reached at this state. And then it is a danger of losing sight of the ultimate goal. And that is why at this point it is said to make a dam outside surrounding us, to prevent from all these worldly influences to affect, and not to look at this victory, what we have come, as our personal victory, but in fact as a victory for the whole mankind, because it is not just our own consciousness that has risen, but the whole human consciousness that has risen. And that is why, if we look from that aspect, we could never feel satisfied, because we still see the mass of humanity suffering around us. So we have to become like a ripe mango fruit, soft for ourselves, soft for others, soft and sweet for others, like pulp, but hard as the fruit's stone for our own sorrows. The same thing as explained in the Golden Stairs, that courageous endurance of personal injustice, but valiant defense of those who are unjustly attacked. And that's what this Virya is. The next is the portal of Dhyana. Although it is mentioned in different forms in the different sections, the fragments, here it says, whose golden gate once opened leads the Narjol, Arthat, I mean the disciple or the aspirant, towards the realm of Sat, eternal, and its ceaseless contemplation. Because now it says, if we have passed this, we have approached this gate with the Dhyana. And what is Dhyana? Dhyana is the 6th, the Bodhi portal. It is like an vase, alabaster vase, white and transparent, within which there burns a golden fire, the flame of Prajna, that radiates from the Atma. Thou art that vase. Now they are talking about the Buddhic Anandamaya Kosha. At Anandamaya Kosha level, as we understand, as we study, there is sense of unity. The barrier is so fine that the sense of separateness is gone, and that is the stage of understanding real brotherhood as we study. And then if we have crossed that stage, it says, thou hast now reached Titiksha state, O Narjol, thou art safe. And Titiksha, Shankaracharya refers to Titiksha as the inquiry into Brahman, because a mind which is subject to anxiety and suffering is unfit for conducting this kind of inquiry. So, which means that our mind now is continuously directed within or upwards in the contemplation of that Brahman. Then only we reach to the next portal, Pragna, the key to open which is Pragna, the key to which makes of a man a god, creating him a bodhisattva, the son of Dhyanis. And Pragna is that key, the virtue, the perfection, which is, and same thing is called by Shri Krishna Sthit Pragna. Pragna means direct perception. So once a Sovani means again the aspirant has crossed the seventh path, all nature thrills with joyous awe and feels subdued. Means the nature becomes happy that, and it mysteriously whisper the pines, the trees, a master has arisen, a master of the day. That means from this illusion, at least one person, one individual soul has risen up from the illusion, and now for the rest of the Manvantara, he is the master of the day for the rest of the time. But the journey does not end here. And the Arya Sangha is very strong in reminding us that if we have arrived at this stage, if we have drank the water of this pure wisdom, we should not become like a pond and still. Instead, we should become like a river and share with this wisdom with as many as possible and become a part of great brotherhood of adepts who are self-doomed to live through future kalpas. Self-doomed. Nobody has forced them to do this work or to leave their moksha and stay for the welfare of humankind. No. They have chosen this path out of their own compassion, unthanked and unperceived by humanity. As we know, in theosophical literature, we get a lot of information about the brotherhood, and also in Bhagavad Gita, Siddha Sangha, and in also different spiritual disciplines, we know that there is such a body that exists. And it is built by many masters of compassion, raised by their tortures, by their blood cemented, and it shields mankind. So it is for our protection. So in the end, Arya Sangha, again, as we discussed in the beginning, that the theosophical approach to this path is not our personal enlightenment, but uplifting the human consciousness as a whole. And that is why Arya Sangha says, gives a choice rather, that it is true that you have a right to Dharmakaya vesture, but Sambhogakaya is greater than Nirvani, that is a Dharmakaya, and greater still is a Nirmankaya, the Buddha of compassion. This is a very long subject that we can study in detail, but in short we can say that Dharmakaya is the one where complete merging of individuality into universality happens, which is often called Nirvana or Moksha or Kaivalya in different traditions. And in that there are no permanent atoms kept by the monad. But Nirmankaya is the one where the monad keeps all the permanent atoms and from time to time come down or spread the spiritual teachings for the welfare of humankind. Dharmakaya also comes down, but later at some point of time as some avatars. So he is saying you have the right to have Dharmakaya, but listen, now he says, he asked a question, can there be bliss when all that lives must suffer? Which is the reason behind Buddha's taking that oath that until the last person is relieved from suffering, I will not go in Nirvana. So he is asking, shall thou be saved and hear the whole world cry that you sit in Nirvana and let your other brothers suffer? So now he asked him that now that you have attained the seventh step, you have crossed the gate of final knowledge, if you want to be the Tathagata, like the Buddha, if you want to follow your predecessor's step, remain unselfish to the endless end. The selfishness does not end only here, even at that point of time when we imagine, when there is a point that we are, we can have a choice of going into nirvana or staying back. How much strong, I would not say desire, but how much strong willpower it will require, or how much strong compassion it will need to stay and not take the Dharmakaya Vaksha. So for that, the preparation has to be done. And Arya Sangha says that thou art enlightened, choose thy way. And as if the disciple or now adept has chosen the path of Nirmankaya, so the book ends with the statement, joy unto you, O men of Milba, a pilgrim has returned back from the other shore, a new Arhan is born. Milba is referred to as hell in Buddhist literature, but in occult literature we all know that there is no hell or patal lok except the earth. That is the worst possible situation, no matter how happy life here can be. So what Arya Sangha says, that a pilgrim has returned back, that he has been to that shore, but out of compassion he has written, and a new Arhan is born. And with these words, the book says, the last words, peace be to all beings. And with these words, I would like to end this presentation, although I took a lot of time, but there are many more things to study and contemplate on this subject. In the given time, we could do this much only, but if out of this study, if we get an inspiration or spark to do this study by our own self in our own time, that would be really fruitful, and we will get more insights from this subject. Thank you, Taneja ji, for giving this opportunity to share such a nice subject, and with this I rest my voice.
Thank you very much, Shekhar ji, for beautiful presentation and very explaining esoteric side of this book. So I'm very thankful to you. And as we all know, this Voice of Silence has 3 parts, and this 7 portals is the 3rd part, as you explained. And this book itself was a marvelous book and was well appreciated. I just recall the one Zen Buddhist scholar, Dr. Suzuki, we must be knowing, wrote about the book. I will just quote him, quote, undoubtedly, Madame Blavatsky had in some way been initiated into the deeper side of Mahayana teaching and then gave out what she deemed wise to the Western world. He also commented, here is the real Mahayana Buddhist, as you beautifully explained and as you told. I am very much thankful to you once again, and there are so many intellectual members. They are most welcome to ask questions or add something. Dr. Sasangi ji is also here. Sasangi ji, please say a few words.
ये बहुत अच्छा सेशन रहा आज का, और हमारे ब्रदर शेखर अग्निहोत्री जो कि थियोसॉफी के प्रकांड पंडित हैं, और बड़ा अच्छा अध्ययन है इनका थियोसॉफी की तमाम पुस्तकों के बारे में। और वॉइस ऑफ साइलेंस जो है ये 3 जेम बुक्स में से एक है, बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है। और मैडम ब्लेवस्की की जो लैंग्वेज है बहुत पोएटिक है। दिस इज ऑफ कोटेड बुक्स, और इसमें बड़े ही विस्तार से जो है मनुष्य को निर्वाण पद प्राप्त करने का जो मार्ग है वो प्रशस्त किया गया है, बड़ी सुंदर उपमाओं के साथ, बड़ी सुंदर सिमलीस के साथ। और इसका बार बार अध्ययन करना, जितनी बार आप अध्ययन करेंगे उतने ही उसके नए नए अर्थ जो हैं वो समझ में आते हैं। आर्य संघ जो थे, संस्कृत के बहुत बड़े स्कॉलर थे और उन्होंने जो है इस पुस्तक की रचना की थी, जिसके आधार पर ये वॉइस ऑफ साइलेंस या अनहत नाद पुस्तक की जो है वो रचना की डॉक्टर मैडम ब्लेवेट्स्की ने। तो आर्य संघ का स्थान जो है वो संस्कृत साहित्य में बहुत ही ऊंचा है, बहुत ऊंचा स्थान है। ये अश्वघोष और नागार्जुन इनके समकक्ष माने जाते हैं। अश्वघोष जो थे वो तो सबसे बड़े संस्कृत के स्कॉलर नंबर 1 पे आते हैं। फिर नंबर 2 पे जो है वो आर्य संघ है। नंबर 4 पे कालिदास का भी नाम है, वो भी संस्कृत के बहुत बड़े स्कॉलर हैं। तो आज बहुत अच्छी विवेचना किया 7 पोर्टल्स के लिए और तरह तरह की उपमाएं दे करके हमको समझाया है कैसी हम अपनी साधनाओं को जो है वो एक नई दिशा दे सकते हैं वॉइस ऑफ साइलेंस के माध्यम से। तो मैं बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं अपने यंग स्पीकर ब्रदर शिखर अग्निहोत्री। बहुत लर्नड हैं, डिवोटेड हैं थियोसफी का, और उन्होंने बहुत अध्ययन किया है, तब किया है थियोसफी में। तो बहुत बहुत बधाई आपको शिखर जी, बहुत अच्छा। और ऐसे ही जो है आप तमाम विषयों पे थियोसफी की जो पुस्तकें हैं उससे हमको जो है वो लाभान्वित करते रहिए और उन पर प्रकाश डाल करके हमारा भी ज्ञान वर्धन करते रहिए। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
No.
Okay.
Now okay. Yes.
Just Shikharji, to congratulate, I again joined. Actually, my talk is there for the Karnataka.
Yes.
But you explained very nicely. I am happy that to listen you. Wonderful talk. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining, sir. Thank you for your words.
Thank you. Thank you, Taneja ji. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Hemant ji is
Hello.
saying something. Hemant ji.
Yeah, please.
थैंक यू शिखर जी।
शिखर बेटा बहुत अच्छा बोला तुमने, बहुत ही अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन किया। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Auntie, for joining and staying. Thank you.
जी हेमंत जी
हाँ
बोलिए।
जी शिखर जी, आपने बहुत अच्छे से समझाया ये 7 पोर्टल्स। मेरा एक छोटा सा प्रश्न था, अगर आप थोड़ा उसको समझा पाए। जो कायास की हम बात करते हैं, धर्म काया, संभोग काया और निर्माण काया, अगर इसको परमानेंट एटम्स के साथ समझा सकें दोबारा।
हाँ.
और एक चीज इसके साथ ये पूछना चाहता हूँ, एक ऑर्डिनरी मैन की जब डेथ होती है उसमें अगर आप परमानेंट एटम्स को उनके साथ भी अगर आप कंपेयर कर सकें, what will happen to the permanent atom those if an ordinary man dies?
Okay. I'll just actually share with you a photograph and I'll ये हम लोग I will understand कि आपने जो ये प्रश्न पूछा है इसका मतलब भूमिका परमानेंट एटम्स की हम लोग जानते हैं कि जो मोनैड है वो नीचे जब आता है तो वो खुद स्वयं तो नहीं आता, बट वो हर प्लेन पे एक एटम को अपने साथ लेता है और उसको हम उसका उस प्लेन का एक व्हीकल कह लीजिए। मैं यहाँ शेयर कर रहा हूँ एक स्क्रीन, तो सबको दिख रहा होगा। तो इसमें जो आप देख रहे हैं कि मोनैड अपनी 3 शक्तियों से, विल, विजडम, एक्टिविटी से, आत्मिक और बुद्धिक और हायर मनस से एक एटम लेता है, वो हमारे व्हीकल्स बनते हैं। और ये ट्रिनिटी है, ये जीवात्मा कहलाती है। और ये फिर एक बुद्धिक थ्रेड के माध्यम से, जिसे सूत्रात्मा कहते हैं, वो और नीचे लोअर मेंटल, एस्ट्रल और फिजिकल प्लेन पे एक एक एटम लेती है। तो टोटल एक तरीके से देखें तो 6 परमानेंट एटम होते हैं इसमें से जो, और ये जो है ये बने रहते हैं एंड तक, जब तक कि पूरी तरीके से व्यक्ति वही इस स्टेज तक नहीं आ गया है कि वो उनको छोड़ सकता है या उनको रख सकता है। और इन्हीं परमानेंट एटम्स में वाइब्रेशंस के फॉर्म में हमारे सारे पुराने जो अनुभव हैं, इवेंट्स नहीं बट द वाइब्रेशंस, ये बहुत समझने की बात है, वो उसमें स्टोर रहते हैं। नाउ जैसा आपने कहा कि धर्म काया, और या एक पहले हम एक नॉर्मल मतलब एक अनएनलाइटेंड या व्यक्ति के बारे में अगर बात करें तो उसमें क्या होता है कि ये जो हमारे जीवात्मा है यानी आत्मा बुद्धिक मनस, वो तो वैसे ही है, लेकिन ये जो आप देख रहे हैं इसमें एक एरो बना हुआ है, यहाँ बर्थ हो रही है और फिर डेथ हो रही है। तो इसमें जो हमारी फिजिकल, एस्ट्रल और मेंटल बॉडी है ये ही नष्ट होती है, लेकिन ये परमानेंट एटम्स जो हैं वो बने रहते हैं। और ये बताया गया है कि ये हमारी कॉजल बॉडी में ही रेस्ट, सुप्तावस्था में चले जाते हैं। जैसे ही आपने फिजिकल बॉडी को नष्ट किया तो जो फिजिकल परमानेंट एटम है वो सुप्तावस्था में चला जाता है। फिर ऐसे ही एस्ट्रल बॉडी का जो एस्ट्रल परमानेंट एटम है और मेंटल परमानेंट एटम है, एंड देन दे रिमेन इन द सुप्तावस्था इन कॉजल बॉडी। लेकिन कई बार हम इसको ये समझ नहीं पाते कि कॉजल बॉडी तो हायर मेंटल पे है और हमारा फिजिकल परमानेंट एटम तो फिजिकल में है, तो वो कॉजल बॉडी में कैसे रह सकता है? वो ऐसे ही रह सकता है जैसे हम अभी हैं। हमारी कॉजल बॉडी भी एक्चुअली इस समय भी हम अपनी कॉजल बॉडी में ही हैं, हम उसके बाहर नहीं हैं। हम, ये तो फिजिकल बॉडी है, इसके चारों ओर हमारी एस्ट्रल बॉडी है, कॉजल बॉडी है, सारी बॉडीज हमारी यहीं पर हैं। तो उसी प्रकार से वो उसमें सुप्तावस्था में रहता है और इट गोज टू सर्टेन प्लेसेस वेयर देयर आर फेवरेबल वाइब्रेशंस जो उसको अट्रैक्ट करती हैं। कुछ कहते हैं कि पेड़ों पे चली जाती हैं जो बहुत पुराने, या जहाँ पेड़ों की भी कुछ कॉन्शियसनेस इवॉल्व हो गई है तो वो उनसे कुछ न्यूट्रिशन पाते रहते हैं वो सुप्तावस्था में। और जब पुनः जीवात्मा का पुनर्जन्म लेने का समय आता है तो वो जब नीचे उतरता है जीव, तो अगेन मेंटल परमानेंट एटम में वाइब्रेशन शुरू होती है, जागृत अवस्था में आता है और वो उस मैटर, उसी तरीके का मैटर अपने चारों ओर खींच लेता है, तो वो मेंटल बॉडी बन जाती है। फिर एस्ट्रल परमानेंट एटम में वाइब्रेशन शुरू होती है, वो एस्ट्रल मैटर अपने चारों ओर खींच लेता है, एस्ट्रल बॉडी बन जाती है और फिर वो ईथरिक बॉडी में आके गर्भ में आता है और फिर लेकर फिजिकल बॉडी। तो ये तो एक नॉर्मल व्यक्ति का प्रोसेस है। लेकिन कई बार जो हमारे दूसरे एटम्स होते हैं बॉडी के, वो जैसी हमारी टेंडेंसीज होती हैं उसी प्रकार की चीजों की तरफ खींच जाते हैं। जैसे कि अगर हमारी बहुत लोअर डिजायर्स रही हैं पार्श्विक, तो वो कई बार इवन एनिमल बॉडीज की तरफ खींच जाएंगी। लेकिन अगर हमने अपने परमानेंट एटम को, अपनी लाइफ को अच्छे तरीके से जिया है तो उसकी वाइब्रेशन बहुत हाई होगी, तो वो ऐसी जगह ही अट्रैक्ट होंगे जहां पे उसको सिमिलर वाइब्रेशंस मिलेंगी। तो ये तो हुआ एक नॉर्मल व्यक्ति का। और इसी प्रकार से ये परमानेंट एटम्स जो हैं वो हम लोग इवोल्यूशन, बर्थ, जन्म के बाद जन्म पे प्योरीफाई और हायर इसमें वाइब्रेशंस आती जाती हैं। और अब आते हैं हम लोग जब एडेप्टशिप की अवस्था में होते हैं, तो उसमें जो धर्म काया कहा गया है उसके बारे में और निर्माण काया के बारे में तो बताया है C.W. लेडबीटर ने, एनी बेसेंट ने भी, कि धर्म काया अर्थात वो फिर अपने सारे कोई भी परमानेंट एटम नीचे नहीं रखते हैं। जो भी है हमारी फ्रॉम आत्मिक, बुद्धिक, मानसिक, एस्ट्रल, फिजिकल, नो परमानेंट एटम्स आर लेफ्ट एंड दैट मर्जिंग इज डन इन द यूनिवर्सल। लेकिन तो इसीलिए उन लोगों को वापस पृथ्वी लोक से संपर्क करने में ऑलमोस्ट इट इज इम्पॉसिबल, एंड वी विल कम टू दैट हाउ इट इज फैसिलिटेटेड। वो भी फैसिलिटेशन होता है निर्माण काया के माध्यम से, क्योंकि निर्माण काया जो है दे कीप देयर परमानेंट एटम्स, एंड दैट इज व्हाई फ्रॉम टाइम टू टाइम जब भी कुछ ऐसी जरूरत है कि मनुष्यता को कोई जरूरत है किसी ज्ञान की, या कोई मान लीजिए उन्हें प्रकट होना है या कहीं जन्म लेना है, तो दे हैव रेडी these permanent atoms to make their bodies. जैसे कि हम लोग सुनते हैं आम कल्चर में महाअवतार बाबा जी हैं या और भी इस तरीके के महात्माज हैं, तो दे आर लाइक निर्माण कायास. दे कैन मेक द एनी बॉडी ऑफ देयर विल or whatever they choose because they have the permanent atom. उसमें वाइब्रेशन होती है and it attracts the material and the body is formed. अब जो धर्म काया है, इसीलिए निर्माण काया को बहुत ही हाई दर्जा, इसलिए ऐसा नहीं है कि कई लोग सोचते हैं धर्म काया इज सेल्फिश एंड निर्माण काया इज अनसेल्फिश. देयर आर 7 ह्यूमन टेम्परामेंट्स, उसी के अकॉर्डिंग सब लोग अपना अपना चूज करते हैं. लेकिन निर्माण काया की बहुत जरूरत इसीलिए है कि वापस मानवता को सिखाने के लिए कौन रुकता है, और जब धर्म काया वाले जीव को भी वापस एज एन अवतार जन्म लेना है तो उसको भी परमानेंट एटम्स की आवश्यकता पड़ रही है. तो ऐसे में जैसे लोग समझते हैं कि बुद्धिज्म वाज अपोज टू हिंदुइज्म और बुद्धिज्म ने हिंदुइज्म को नष्ट कर दिया था या कंफ्यूजन आ गया था, उसको ठीक करने के लिए शंकराचार्य आए. बट हु वाज शंकराचार्य? शंकराचार्य was also called प्रच्छन्न बुद्ध, like hidden Buddha. क्यों? क्योंकि शंकराचार्य also was a dharmakaya. He was one of the pratyek Buddhas who did not have any atoms on this realm. So he has to take the lower. He only had the atmic, the spirit. All the other 5, the middle principles were of Buddha. क्यों? क्योंकि इतनी हाई स्पिरिट के लिए इतने इवॉल्व परमानेंट एटम कहां से आए? तो दैट्स व्हाई द मिडिल प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ बुद्धा वर यूज्ड बाय द ऋषि सनातन, एंड देन ही केम डाउन एज शंकराचार्य, और ही रीइंस्टेटेड द और रिमूव द कंफ्यूजन क्रिएटेड बाय हाफ अंडरस्टूड बुद्धिस्ट टीचिंग्स इन द हिंदुइज्म. तो इसलिए अगर हम ऑकल्ट दृष्टि से देखें तो एक्चुअली बुद्धा एंड शंकराचार्य दे आर ऑल वर्किंग टुगेदर. लेकिन अगर एक्सोटेरिक दृष्टि से देखेंगे तो हमें लगेगा कि शंकराचार्य बुद्धा के ऑपोजिट काम कर रहे हैं या बुद्धा हिंदुइज्म के ऑपोजिट काम कर रहे हैं. बट ऑल ऑफ देम आर कमिंग फ्रॉम द सेम ग्रेट व्हाइट ब्रदरहुड एंड ऑल ऑफ देम आर वर्किंग इन हार्मनी विद ईच अदर. आई होप आई एम एबल टू
यस सर.
समथिंग.
बहुत बहुत थैंक यू सर, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. बहुत अच्छे से सर आपने एक्सप्लेन. थैंक्स अ लॉट.
थैंक यू सर.
Very nice explanation, brother. I want to read this book. Is it there any online link?
Which Voice of the Silence, sister?
Yeah.
Voice. Yeah. Okay. If you give me your email or okay, you can search on the Voice of the Silence free PDF. You will find on online somewhere. Or if you give me your email, I can try to send you.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. You can search on Theosophy World website or Blavatsky archives somewhere. A lot of e-books are there. Even anandgholap.net is there. On that also, on that it is available.
Sir, please spell Gholap. Anand Gholap.
Anand Gholap. GHOLAP.
Anand Gholap.
.net.
.net. Okay, thank you.
And when there is exclusive site, BlavatskyStudyRoom.net. So all the Blavatsky papers and books one can find there.
Sir, please repeat. Blavatsky.
StudyRoom.net.
Study
Room.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. और किसी का कोई प्रश्न है तो पूछिए, वो अपनी बात रख सकते हैं, नहीं तो हम सभा को समाप्त करना चाहेंगे. समय हो चला है. I think nobody has to tell anything. So once again, thanking very much to our Brother Shikhar Agnihotri ji, I would like to conclude this meeting with the recitation of Shanti Mantra. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit apare. Shanti, Shanti. Thank you. And next week, our member of Dalit Local Federation and Secretary of Shankar Lodge Delhi, Dr. Rajiv Gupta, will be delivering the talk at the same time. You all are most welcome. Please do join. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Pranam to everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Shikhar ji. Thank you.
Sir, my email ID is given in the chat box.
Yes. I have noted, Bhavana ji. I will send to you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Namaste.